Hello, good morning, everyone. Just to share a little bit about me, my name is Almas. So a little background, I've recently moved to India last year. I've born and raised in Saudi Arabia, so come from a very different place in a different locale. So when I moved to India, I think one thing that really interested me was how the class strength is very high, and there, like a little classroom has as many as 30 students. And it always made me wonder that something that was very easily adaptable in my lesson planning and something that I did very frequently as a teacher was to differentiate in my instruction and, cater to differential instruction. And coming down to India, I realized that that was one of the biggest challenges I faced, and that not many people do hear about differentiation. The term is there, it's relative, but people don't really understand why is it so important and why differentiation has to be a prime pedagogical approach in our teaching methodology. And today I'm hoping to take you through a little bit of why differentiation as a pedagogy really works. So to begin with, let me just tell you what really is differentiation. So you may have heard that quite a few times. Differentiation is basically a teaching strategy or a pedagogical approach that aims to address the diverse learning needs of students within a single classroom. So now that you understand that, yes, it's differentiation, and you just wondering, what is differentiation? How do I, because for example, now I'm an English language teacher, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm teaching, for example, summary writing. It's one topic. How do I make it different for everyone? Well, we need to understand that in our classroom, no two students are the same, right? So I cannot go into my classroom with one set of instructions, one way of teaching, and expect everyone to cater to that. And that is why differentiation is so really important, right? Because it's one approach that helps you design and plan your lessons in a way that in that one class, in that 45-minute class that you have, you're catering to all those learners that you have. You make them feel seen, you make them feel valued. So every learner is, involved, every learner is, present. Um, And like I say, why? If I may just have you, all the members present here, glance at this picture. It's a still image, but that image has a lot to communicate, right? That there'll always be someone in your class who's not learning the same way, right? We may have students of different abilities. We may have students of different understanding, and not everyone functions the same way. If you look at this picture out here, it's simple. You have maybe say this is a very interesting picture. The picture really resonated with me because it was more like, an old school teaching method. Like you have a teacher facilitated in the center out there. You all children looking in the direction of the teacher, but there is this one child who turns away and is learning in a different manner. This is what differentiation allows you. This is what you allow here. If you see the picture, if you see the arrow out there that points at that one student who's turning the other way, has his book with him, is not listening to what the teacher has to say, but is still learning. What's important with differentiation is we understand that at the end of the day, everyone is in part of the learning process, right? Everyone is there to learn. How do I make it work? Why, right? So what I'm sharing here with you right now here is learning profiles. That when you sit in that classroom now, given that India has a number of challenges in terms of operational challenges, resource challenges, right? But there's one thing that's constant is that we're dealing with young adults and children here, right? We're dealing with an age group that's very volatile. We're dealing with an age group that requires our attention. Now, every child learns at a different pace. It has different abilities. No two children are the same, but there's one teacher, right? I mean, at the same time, we need to understand that we're teaching individuals and not programming robots out here, right? So when I walk into that classroom and I have 30 odd children out there who are waiting, looking in anticipation, and sitting out there to learn something from me, I also need to understand that I have 30 odd individuals, 30 different mindsets, 30 different abilities, 30 different types of learners, right? If I may take you through this very beautiful image, resourceful image rather, that I've gotten from Learns Hugo. It is basically different styles of learning. It elaborates on different learning styles. And this is what you are going to see in your classroom for sure, right? So, what you have those 30 classrooms, you may have different types of learning individuals. You have kids who are social in nature. When I say social, means they have great interpersonal skills. They love asking questions. They love collaborating. They love raising their hand. They love to work with groups. They like you. So when you say, "Oh, I have a group activity," these are the kids that get really excited. So usually when you walk into your classroom and say, "Okay, today we're going to have a group activity," you hear a murmur of mixed sounds. You have half that go, "Yay," and then you'll have someone who'll be like, "Oh no, I don't like this." Because where I have social learners, I also have solitary learners on the opposite side of the spectrum. If you may see, so you have social learners on the orange pane, and then there on the teal or the blue pane, you have those solitary learners. Who are these solitary learners? These solitary learners are children who prefer to learn alone, and they love functioning independently. Nothing wrong with that. See, in today's time and age where we push for collaboration, where we really, talk about group work, collaborate, get together. I also need to understand that there may be students who like to work independently. There may be students who do not like collaborating, and that's okay, right? At the same time, I may have students who are visual learners. Now, as independent teachers, I think we've been through these types of learners, and we've understood that people say that okay, you have visual learners, you have uh, auditory learners, you have children who do well kinesthetically. So now there's so many types of learners, right? Who visual or spatial learners are children who love PowerPoint presentations. I mean, so many of you here out there, if I would just come out here and talk, um, you know it would just be like, okay, I don't understand. But if I give you visual cues, if I give you you know say, if I give you images, if I give you PPT, if I give you visual cues to understand, it becomes easier for you. For example, say if I'm teaching a kindergarten child, and if I say, okay, A creates the phonic sound of ah, you know how do I get that to a kid? But if I bring in an apple, and if I tell them, hey, apple, they have something to look. When they see that fruit, they're able to identify that, oh, yeah, apple. Oh, that's a long vowel sound. That's how it works, right? For example, if you're doing a science lesson in primary level, and you say, okay, today we're going to learn about parts of plants. And if you just say, okay, parts of plants are this, I'm listing it out. But then what if I take a part of plant? What if I actually take a flower pot in class, right? I take a flower pot in class. Some of them may learn better by looking. Oh, this is a petal. This is a sepal. This is a stem. This is a leaf. Fine. Some of them might work kinesthetically. Some child may break a part of a flower, feel the petal, and then remember for the rest of their life that, oh, this is the petal. They may touch the filament, touch the pollen, and then feel like, oh, this is what a pollen feels like. And then they know what it is. These are my kinesthetic learners, right? I have students who work well with audio instructions, right? Music, auditory, or, someone who likes the sound of music, someone who likes to listening to lectures. So say audio lessons, podcasts. So today we've come a long way in our teaching pedagogies, in our teaching approach. We've moved a lot, right? But we have so much research now. See, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, my dear members. We don't have to do all that research now. We have experts who have spent years understanding learner profiles. So step one to differentiation is to understand what is your learner profile. This does not take a long time. Believe me, it may seem tedious, but every year when I start my class, I spend a little bit of time understanding what my learner profile is, that I have 30 children. What are these 30 children really? That little brainstorm, that little, oh, what's your name and what do you like doing? If we move past that and understand how do you like to learn? And once I've created a learner profile, it becomes very easy for me to pick up on those attributes, learner attributes that I have, and then cater to those learner attributes and plan my lessons accordingly. So like I was saying, different learner profiles. So you may have someone who likes to work with logic, so those students don't function well if you just give them information. You need to validate that information for them, that okay, like this is why it is 1 + 1 is 2. There's a formula to it, there's a way to do it, who work well with patterns. You may have learners who get really excited sometimes, when they just sit in that classroom for odd 40 minutes, it's so mundane. And if you tell them, hey, you know what, let's just switch up a little bit, get up, move into different classrooms, create workstations, have them go in different corners, have them have some movement, And that movement will, bring in those kinesthetic energies. So learner profile and learning learner attributes or understanding learning attributes is a key step in planning your lessons well, right? So as teachers, I think this is something that we really need to put into our lesson planning, and have that as a part of that. If I want to have differentiation as a learning pedagogy, I cannot imply differential learning and differentiation as an instruction if I don't understand my learner profile. And once I've understood, I'm going to go back to this picture. Once I've understood that, what, these are individuals that learn differently. I cannot have all of these individuals function, in a manner that's, robotic. Then I'll understand that, it's children, it's humans that we're dealing with. Once I understand their learner profile, once I understand what their learner portfolio is, it becomes so easy for me to pick up on those learner portfolios, pick up on those parts of this learner profile, and then plan my lesson. And that brings me to, once I've understood my learner portfolio, which is the challenge at first, but once I've done that, I can understand that, okay, now let me see how I can imply differentiation. And if I look at differentiation, there are some key factors to differentiation, key principles. Okay, if you've not heard enough, I think the new wave of teaching or new age teaching has brought us to that place where differentiation is a word that's thrown at us as teachers way too often. And sometimes I feel that teachers don't understand the true essence of differentiation, right? The true essence of differentiation is when you bring in flexibility, flexibility in your content, flexibility in the process, and flexibility in the product. So when I say flexibility in content, process, and product, how can I do that? How do these three key factors bring in, right? That when I go with my lesson plan, when I go with my plan that, okay, for example, I'm going to teach article writing. English teacher, I think my examples will resonate a little bit to that. So if I say, okay, today I'm going to go teach article writing, I may understand that some child may not be able to write a full-blown article right at start. I can alter the content for him. I can give him magazine articles and say, hey, you know what? You just analyze bits and pieces. In that, they're going to pick up the GRAP. They're going to understand the genre. They're going to understand the audience. They're going to understand the purpose. They're going to understand the register. At least they've understood what article writing is and how article writing works, right? I may differentiate the process for someone. For example, I may know that, okay, I have X student who cannot write paragraphs, who cannot just directly go into a full-blown article writing mode. I might want to tell him, you know what, why don't you make a mind map? Make a mind map where you put the title in the center for me, and you've put the box of what article writing is. You've put me a box of what ideas you're going to work with, and you've put me another mind map that gives me what structure you're going to work with. So yes, I don't have an article written by the student, but I do have the process. I do have the mind map that tells me what are the key conventions of article. So here, what have I done? I have differentiated the process for that child. So instead of writing an article, I have asked that child to give me a mind map. So one topic, article writing, but I'm differentiating on content. I'm differentiating on process of how that child is learning differentiation. I can also differentiate the end byproduct where I know that, okay, I have my fast and my good learners who do, who can do article writing. I might have slow learners who still don't know how to work with paragraphs. And maybe I can tell them, you know what, you do bullet points for me. You just give me sentences, just give me pointers. This is the topic. Give me pointers on how this is going to work, and this gives them confidence. This gives them autonomy. This makes them feel that, okay, my teacher is not forcing me right now to do something that I cannot do. And this helps them build. This helps them build confidence. This helps them be more conducive. And this conducive process and this conducive approach helps them be more reciprocative to learning. They're going to respond better. They're going to have a positive approach. So when I am tailoring my instruction, when I'm tailoring my instruction to cater to students' readiness levels, it makes them feel seen. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel like, okay, my teacher here cares about me. My teacher here is to teach me and not just those smart kids. Because what happens is, when you walk into a class, and like we've already agreed that we have differential abilities. We have mixed students. I may have very smart, very good students. I may have slow students. I may have, we always have a mixed bag. So the high performing students are always in a good space, because they are high performing. But then those low performers, those less performing students that I have, they feel valued and they feel seen when you do differential instruction. And it's something that it's a very personalized approach. Yes, it's an approach that is difficult, but it's an approach that makes you feel empowered as an educator and as a teacher. Because when I go into my class with differential instruction, I know that every child feels seen, every child feels very valued. And that is what is the true reward. Ultimately, as teachers, we're seeking a reward, right? I think we all come to understanding that it's not a very well paid job, but it's something that we do because we are passionate about it as educators, you know. So coming back to, I think I've waffled a little bit there, but coming back to create principles, right? So when I'm flexible in my content process and product, when I'm tailoring instruction to, cater to my students' needs, and when I'm adapting based on their interest and their learning profile, if I'm doing these three things, I'm differentiating. If I'm not doing these three things, I'm not differentiating. And if I'm not differentiating means I'm going out there with a 1970s way of teaching, giving didactic instruction and leaving out of my class without having my learners feel enriched and without me as an educator feeling empowered that I've made a difference today. He's not disturbing me. It's okay. Now, how is differentiation going to help? Right? When we say that, okay, I have catered to the learning profile, when I am catering to I've understood the learner profile and attributes, how is this really going to help? How is this going to help my learners? Differentiation as a pedagogy is so impactful. Let me tell you, fellow teachers, it is a hit. And when I say a hit, I'm going to tell you what that acronym stands for. Why is differentiation a hit? Because when I differentiate, it definitely improves student engagement. Their level of engagement really comes up. Their level of engagement is high because then they feel like they're all a part of this. This class is not for just one person. This class is not catering to one individual. This class is not catering to a group of smart learners, but this is for everyone. So there is certainly going to be a high level or an improved level of engagement. There's enhanced learning outcomes, because I'm giving them the freedom. See, I'm going to go back to my slide. When I'm giving them the freedom to change the output when their process is changing, when I'm giving them the flexibility with product, the final product that they do, then they feel like, yes, there is so much learning outcome. If I go out and say, you know what, also if you're going to write an article for me, but then there are 17 people who don't want to write, who don't know how to write, how is their learning outcome going to be any productive? How is their learning outcome going to be successful? But when I give them the flexibility that, yeah, you can do bullet points, you can do mind maps, you can do this, everyone can do a little bit of what they want to bring to the table, then the outcome definitely improves. And if the outcome improves, this also this, like I talked about, feeling empowered and feeling valued. So there's greater inclusivity and there's greater accessibility, that everyone feels included, everybody feels they have access to the teacher, access to what the teacher wants to teach. Because when you differentiate, when you bring in those differential ideas, it makes them feel like, okay, we all have access. Because if you go with that one lateral approach, difficult content that doesn't cater to everyone, they will be odd 17, 20 students who feel like they don't have access to this anymore, because what, you're not catering to their level, you're not catering to their needs. And this is why differentiation is a hit. It's called a hit. I call it a hit because for me, it's a high impact teaching strategy, a wonderful high impact teaching strategy that if all of us collectively understand that this pedagogy gives results, this pedagogy definitely gives results, it is a hit. It is a high impact teaching strategy. I think we'll all try to think a little differently about differentiation and try bringing in it. And it's always easier said than done. Always easy to say that, hey, you know what, differentiate, create different plans, cater to all learners. I do understand that it's difficult, but there are some simple ways how one can do it, right? I think I've listed out a few ways that we can try and do differentiation, where you can have tiered assignments, flexible grouping, varied instructional resources to be used, and adjust spacing and scaffolding. These are some ways to differentiate. There are n number of differentiated learning instructions and n number of activities and ways that we can do differentiation. I'm just listing out a few for you because believe me, there's a plethora and the sky is the limit for you, teachers, educators. facilitators, whatever we want to call ourselves, you know, that when you tier your assignments, when you put them on levels based on everyone's level, when you allow flexible grouping, that, you know what, let me put my, for example, depending on the topic, let me put my high performers in one group, let me put my low performers in one group, and I can give them a task that caters to their abilities. Let me put my middle order learners together. Or you know what, let me group it this way, where I have my high performer, one middle learning, and one low performer. They all connect. They become each other's links. The high performer takes the lead, makes a low performer, feel like, oh, this is how I can think, shares information. See, so you're flexible grouping. Sometimes I want to group them in their same abilities and give them a task that caters to their abilities. Sometimes I want to group them in differential abilities and see that they all collaboratively learn from each other. You know, varied instruction. Like I said, if it's an article, I don't have to go with one lateral approach that all of you do the same thing. I can just say, you know what, you guys do this, you do that. And, it becomes easy. There may be challenges, but, with adjusted pace, with scaffolding, with giving them the help that they need, I think we can definitely work towards a better differential instruction and applying a differentiation as a pedagogy or a methodology that would help all our learners and feel enriched. I do understand, like I said, differentiation can be challenging, definitely. And especially given that as teachers, we have so much to do. There's assessments, there's exams, there's papers, there's class, there's lesson, there's extracurricular. There's so much on our plate. Our plate is always so full. So I see you, I understand, I acknowledge that it is something very challenging. And yes, not every class can be differentiated, but it's hard managing the diverse needs, and given the time constraint, it's very difficult. But at the end of the day, when you see results that differentiation gives, when you see how it brings in so much engagement and improvement in the learning outcome, see, ultimately our goal is the learning outcome. And if something impacts the learning outcome positively, it's worth it. So I would want you to really give this a thought. And I think there's so many collaborative ways that we can do differentiation for each other, right? I'm not saying that, go to your next class and go full blown differentiation, go with different instruction. No, start small, start gradually, one step at a time. Maybe differentiate one part, one aspect, one lesson a term, collaborate with other teachers, collaborate with your colleagues, and see how we can help each other gain that momentum in including this HIT strategy across in our teaching methodology. And I think, Ms. Praveena, I may have spoken a little longer than I should have. I think in that sort of brings me to the end, that at the end of the day, if one lesson can change the trajectory of a student's life, it's really worth the trouble. And I hope that you do give it a thought as instructors, that differentiation is something that we must bring into our classroom, because at the end of the day, it's for the learners.
True, ma'am. Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. Now we have some questions lined up. If you can stop sharing your screen and expand your camera screen so that the audience can have a better view. Thank you.
Stop share. Yeah.
Yes, it's absolutely perfect. So we have questions, and first, we have a comment, okay, to you. So somebody wants to welcome you. First of all, I want to say welcome to India, and I wish you a happy journey as a teacher, is what some anonymous, they don't publish their names. So I would like to read out that comment to you first. Can you hear me, Miss Almas?
Yes, I can hear you, Miss Praveena.
Yes. So somebody wants to send a wishful comment.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we'll take the questions one by one. I was going through the questions, and almost every point is covered, but still, since while you were doing the session, they started posting. So I would like to read out those questions to you, if you can answer them in brief. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So the first question is, what strategies can educators employ to implement differentiation effectively in their classrooms, ma'am?
Okay, so like I talked about, so when you can tiered activities really help. So when I say tiered activities, basically where I'm not going in with, like I said, one lateral instruction, one simple with instruction. So you have to take it step by step. Say, for example, there's a simple way. I do a class called the dice method. What's the dice method? Where, see, on a dice you have number 1 to 6, right? So 1 is the least difficult task and 6 is the highest difficult task. I put my entire lesson in a way that caters to the lowest difficulty order question to the highest difficulty order question, right? And then I know my learners, I know their abilities, and I'll assign tasks accordingly. This way, everybody gets to learn the easiest things and also the difficult things get covered, but then it doesn't put pressure on the lower order learners to do a 6 level task, So tiered activities where learners are given tasks based on their abilities and not that everybody do everything. You understanding? And that's the core essence of differentiation.
Okay. So the second question is, in what ways can technology be used to support differentiation in teaching?
Okay, wonderful question. And let me tell you, technology, there's so much that we can do. I think my best friend right now is ChatGPT and AI. I love using AI tools. I think as teachers, if we embrace technology and embrace artificial intelligence, that could be another session altogether someday. But there are so many ways. Now, for example, if I may share, there's so many gaming platforms, right? As an English teacher, I love using Padlet. What Padlet does is, it allows students to post their responses. I post a question, I post Padlet. When they go back home, they have time to reflect, they have time, and then they share their points. So you can use so many online platforms that, make, differential learning. As science teachers, I see science teachers in my community use games, Kahoot, create your own games, create games onto your students' levels. There's this website called Bamboozle. If you use Bamboozle, they have so many games on so many levels. And, you could, so then this, also excites the learners. It makes them feel like, wow, there's something different happening in class today, So grouping, games, dice method, where you're tiering instruction according to difficulty levels. These are just some of the ways in which differentiation can be employed in classroom, and technology really makes it very conducive and easy for you. I think post-pandemic, we've all come to understand that there is no end to what we can do as collaborative measures and how technology has aided our teaching instruction and our methodologies, right? So online games, online platforms, platforms like Padlet, platforms that allow you to, continue your instruction after your class. And that is how it also caters to differentiation and helps you integrate technology in your classroom.
Okay. So how do you tailor instruction to meet the individual needs of students while maintaining a cohesive classroom environment?
Okay, so like I said, I think understanding learner profile is very important. Once I've understood my learner profile, I need to know, like I said, I need to know no two children learn the same way, right? Now, I need to know that ultimately my class objectives are fulfilled. I think that's the larger challenge. And that's what the question is addressing, that, okay, if I have to teach one X concept, and if I know that, okay, a child cannot get X concept, do I do? Not teach it at all. No, that's why we tier it, we scaffold it for them, right? So with differentiation, it needs planning, it needs a lot of work, but then you have to understand that the outcome is worth it, right? So if you may just repeat that question for me once again, for me to be sure that I've answered them correctly.
Right. So it says, how do you tailor instruction to meet the individual needs of students while maintaining a cohesive classroom environment?
Yes. This comes down to your planning, right? So I may be flexible with my process and product, but I need to know that content is uniform, right? So for example, if I'm going to teach parts of plants, everyone, regardless of how they're learning, need to know parts of plants, right? And this is where differentiation is. So someone might learn well looking at the PPT, someone may be okay with notes, someone may want to touch and feel and see the parts of plants in real to understand, but ultimately they're all learning the parts of plants, right? So that's how you're going to work, scaffold it for them based on their learner profile.
Great. So what are some common challenges teachers face when trying to differentiate instruction, and how can they overcome them?
Like I said, time management, planning, we have so much on our plate that, differentiating every class is really a thorough challenge. One way you can do it is at the beginning of the year when you're not really full flow into it, when your learners are new, when your new class comes to you, have a quick survey. Technology again, create a Google Doc. take survey, ask them, hey, you know what, fill your Google Doc and tell me what's your learning style, how do you like learning, and you'll see how these students are going to tell you, that okay, I love learning. So creating a learner profile, I usually float a Google Doc, it really works for me, and then I have them share. So have them share, understand their learner profile. Once I've understood their learner profile, I think collaborating and having a conducive environment in school, right? So I think as teachers, if you collaborate, maybe share tasks as department, as in a science department, get together and see that, okay, you know what, let's plan our units in a way that, one person is not overloaded with differential instruction, and we're all contributing a little bit and maybe working on one unit plan together. So collaboration within teams, collaboration within departments is one way to reduce workload. Starting small and gradually till it becomes a part of your teaching methodology. I think that's the trick. And not go full blown that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and today just do everything at once. That won't work out. So maybe take sizable chunks, give yourself the grace. I'm a human, I have a family, I have so many things to do, so it's not possible for me to just go head on. To little bit by bit, sizable chunks, and integrate it slowly into your teaching pedagogy.
I understand. So can you share examples of successful differentiation practices that have positively impacted student learning outcomes?
I would love to share. So last year, since I said I've moved to India and this is the new country for me, I'm a high school teacher. And when I started work last year, I was given one class of middle school. Now, middle school was a different area for me. I've never really taught that age group. And it had its own challenges. And I realized that, when I went to a class and we had a title on magazine articles, okay, the topic was magazine articles, teaching magazine articles. And I felt like the book was so overwhelming for these 7th graders. What I did was I differentiated the entire thing for them. And I said, you know what? We are going to create our own class magazine. This way, the boys were excited, boys who don't like writing, okay? And I created groups. I created the entire class, a class of 30 into 7 groups. I put the smartest and the highest order learning girls as the editors. I put the boys for tech, so they worked on Canva, they worked on the technical aspects. I put the students, the medium order students, to do grammar bit, proofread. They all created a lifestyle magazine. The entire class wrote articles and they helped each other. They collaborated with each other, So the smart ones proofread. They said, hey, you know what, you've written this, and this got everyone excited. The boys had their articles and their sections on gaming. Girls did beauty, home, lifestyle, cooking. We created. So over a period of 2 months, magazine article, which was supposed to take a 2 weeks class, I spanned it over 2 months as a project, as a term project. And by the end, my class was so well rounded with what magazine articles are, because they were reading it so often and doing it on so many levels. Even the boys who were editing on Canva knew that, array, article kidhar hai, title kidhar hai, where are your paragraphs? Things, if I tell them didactically that, okay, an article should have a title, should have paragraphs, should have this, should have that, these boys would have never known. But because they were involved in the editing process, they were like, hey, Namish, where's your title? Where's your this? And then by the end, we realized that the class created their own class magazine. And oh my God, what a phenomenal output. A grade 7 class put up a 30-page magazine with articles that they had written. And I carry so much pride that I was able to do that. And it was all possible only because I went with that approach that, okay, I have a different learner profile. I'm going to bring in that differentiated approach for my learners.
Great. Yeah. So because of the time constraint, I'm not going to take all the questions, Ms. Almas. So last but not the least, a couple of questions I will take. How does differentiation promote inclusive education and support students with disabilities?
I think, like I said previously, and that is the core essence of my talk today, that differentiation means accessibility for all.
Yes.
Because I'm differentiating, I'm making sure that no learner is left behind. So my weak learners, sometimes we have students with learning disabilities in a normal classroom. They also feel seen. They also feel valued. That, okay, my teacher is not talking stars and rockets. She cares about me, and I'm given a task that fulfills my needs, So I think it is a pedagogy that is so in sync with accessibility.
So what professional development opportunities are available for teachers to enhance their skills in differentiation, Ms. Almas?
I think that really depends on where you're coming from. For me, it empowers me as an educator. But if you've included differentiation as a pedagogy, you're definitely going to find a plethora of opportunities, better opportunities opening up for you, because it is the way forward. See, we have to evolve and we have to grow. So if you are still teaching the 1970s way, someone is going to replace you, right? To keep up, and find yourself in that competitive space, we need to keep evolving. And the best way to keep evolving is to have a hit strategy. And like I said, differentiation is a hit strategy.
Right. So coming to the school leaders, how can school leaders support teachers in implementing differentiation as a pedagogical approach?
I think allowing the flexibility. For example, something like article writing, like I said, that is should be covered in, one week of class took 2 months for me. But by the end of those 2 months, we did grammar was improved, writing was improved, article writing as a topic was improved, confidence levels were boosted. The learning outcomes were so much that the school realized that it's okay if it took 2 months. So leaders need to understand that, allow your teachers that freedom and grace, trust in them, and understand that the outcome is so much more worth than anything. That when you have such great outcomes, at the end of the day, our goal is learner outcome and learner what the learners feel, right? So if what I'm getting in return is enriching my learners so much, leaders need to understand that, yes, I need to allow my teachers the freedom to employ this.
So thanks a lot for the session, ma'am. School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com. Thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions. We also thank the audience for participating in the event. We will end the session now. Do you have to say anything else, ma'am?
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Ms. Praveena. I had a wonderful time, and I hope to many more sessions like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.